Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Looks like it's a little slow, so I'm going to give the stream a chance to catch up here. Check 1, 2. Check, test. Check that all right. Can you guys hear me okay? See, that looks good. Check 1, 2. Let's see here. Okay. Well, welcome to Coffee Talk. My name is Brendan Smith, Backdoor from Bronson Coffee Roasters. And leave me a comment in the chat if you're just joining us. We're so glad that you're here. We're going to be brewing up one of our fan favorites today. Today we have Ethiopia Harar. Ethiopia Harar is a favorite for many reasons, not the least of which is just how delicious it is. So I'm going to wait just a minute to let some people join us. Leave us a comment in the chat if you're watching and let us know if you have any questions. We're going to give away some coffee today, give away a bag of Ethiopia Harar to somebody that is tuned in. Talk through the coffee, brew it up, answer your questions. So just hold tight for just a second. Now we get everything going. Looks good. Looks good. See. All right. Check. And can you guys hear me okay? I'm not seeing my, let me know if you can hear me. I'm a little nervous that maybe you can. But I don't know why. But if you can, let me know. Or if you can't, let me know. Okay? All right. I'm going to give it just another minute here. In the meantime, I'm going to show you. Yep, you can hear. Sweet. Okay, good. My little dialogue that shows me the microphone isn't showing me the microphone for some reason. I don't know why. But I'm glad you can hear. Nevertheless, that's great. We'll keep going. So Ethiopia Harar, this is one of our favorite coffees. You can find this on our website, backdoorcoffee.com. If you use the coupon code right there, save 10%, watch and learn 10. This is just a wild and exciting coffee. If you read the coffee report on this one, it says something to the effect of, if you prefer whole grain or rye bread to sandwich bread, Ethiopia Harar is for you. It's a wild and interesting and complex and fun coffee. The tasting notes on the bag are blueberry, sage, and lavender. So for visual, we got some blueberries. We've got our sage. And we have some lavender. And then also, if you read the coffee report, it mentions a couple of other notes that aren't listed on the bag. So we've got chamomile, rosemary, and nutmeg. And all of these are kind of elements and things that we are tasting when we sip Ethiopia Harar. So I've got some coffee ground up here. And I can tell you, having cupped this coffee many, many times, I get the, I definitely get the blueberry. This is kind of our blueberry coffee. People love it because it really, really screams of berries. It's a naturally processed coffee, which means that the coffee cherry is separated from the seed, the coffee bean, by being laid out in the sun rather than through running water. And so you get a bit of that mucilage from the fruit that's left behind and imparts some of that fruity flavor. It's also an Ethiopian coffee, and we tend to get a lot of berry notes from those. So this one tastes of blueberry. But I'm really getting the lavender and kind of that sagey note in here. And a bit of the chamomile too. It's a very complex coffee. If you haven't tried it, you have to. It's really delicious. So I'm gonna brew up some. I'm gonna make my little brew station bigger for you. If you've got any questions, hit us up in the comments. Always happy to answer your brewing questions, whatever they may be. So I'm gonna make it in a Chemex. I made some in my V60 this morning, and it came out really, really nice in there. So I'm gonna discard that little rinse water. Because we don't want the rinse water. The rinse water is just there to rinse any papery taste out and to preheat the vessel. Per usual, I'm putting my 25 grams of coffee in. I'm going to start with about 50 grams of water, maybe up to 75. I kind of like to do a slightly heavier bloom. Give that a little aggressive little swirly swirl just to get it all wet. The idea with the bloom is that all the coffee gets saturated with water at the same time. So ideally it's equally wet. And once I see it stop bubbling, I'm going to continue to brew. If you've had this coffee before, you probably already love it. I love this coffee brewed a number of different ways. Really good on a V60, really great in a Chemex, like I'm doing at the moment, but it's also a delicious cold brew or iced coffee. So love, love, love this one in a cold brew dripper. Love this one in a toddy. Love this one as an iced Chemex. Some of you have seen me do iced Chemex before. So now I'm just kind of aggressively pouring up to about 300. I'm going to swirl the whole thing. Switch it so you can see this better. And by swirling it, I'm knocking any coffee off the edges. I'm going to let that drain down. And I just want to let it drain until I can kind of see the coffee bed again. Once I can see a little bit of that coffee bed just poking through the water, I'm going to add the rest of my water. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So, not too many coffees have this incredible of an assortment of notes. If you've never done it before, a fun thing to do is to sample complementary flavors with the coffee to see how that coffee changes. Like if I were to eat a couple of blueberries and drink the coffee, would that blueberry really come to the front? Hint, probably would. If I were to sniff some of the other scents and just kind of get them in my mind, what would come forward? That's a really useful thing when you're thinking about when you want to drink certain coffees, right? If a coffee has a real forward note of one particular thing, I try to think about what would go really good with whatever that thing is. So if there's a little bit of a strawberry note to the coffee, I might have chocolate with it. Who doesn't like a chocolate-covered strawberry? If something is brighter, like lemony, I like to have that with like a salty cheese because those are kind of complementary flavor profiles. All right, so it's draining. It's just to the point where I'm starting to see a little bit of that coffee bed. So I'm going to pour just a little more. And as I'm looking at this, I'm seeing that it's draining a hair slower than I would hope. And because it's draining a little bit slower than I anticipate it would, what I would do is I'd go back to my grinder and I would coarsen up the grind just a little bit. Whenever you're making adjustments to your brewing, the easiest and typically the most rewarding thing to change is your grind size. So if you can make a small adjustment to grind size, that's really going to control your flow rate better than almost anything else. That's definitely the way to go. So I'm seeing this one's draining just a little slower than I'd like. But that's okay. We have ways around that too. I'm going to show you how to fix that in a moment. So blueberry, lavender. Oh man, that lavender. That's incredible. There's definitely a florality to this coffee that I love. And then the sage is just that sort of herbaceousness. That means it's not a one-trick pony. It's a coffee that can kind of hold up really, really well as something that's different and exciting, but at the end of the day, it's a cup of coffee. And I think that herbaceousness really helps with that. I think there's some crossover between kind of the lemony notes of chamomile and the herbaceousness of the sage. I think there's some overlap there. And of course, rosemary. Rosemary gives that woodiness. Same thing with nutmeg. Nutmeg's like that dry spice, but with a little bit of a sweet undertone to it. And this is definitely a sweeter coffee. Okay, so I said before that it was draining a little slower than I love. So what I'm going to do is I'm looking at this total weight and I know where I want to be. When this gets, you see that it's still draining okay. It's just a little slower than I'd like. It's a little drippy drip, and I'd like it to be a hair more streamy stream. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll show you my fix. The risk here is over extraction. I don't want over extraction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this a little early. I'm just going to take a little water. I'm going to use the water to get up to the weight I wanted. Oh, that was a sneak peek. So, by the way, 1 week from today, next Wednesday, our Green Bean Bar Bank is going to be on the program. So please tune in for that. Bob travels for us full-time purchasing coffee. And it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. The reason I added just straight water was because there was a risk of over extraction. When the water and the coffee maintain contact for too long of a period of time, the water starts to pull things out of that coffee that you don't necessarily want. Those can be more bitter, they can lead to a dry astringency, and while you can, there's some of that you can correct, but once you're there, some of it you will never be able to correct. By pulling the coffee a little earlier and then just diluting it to my preferred strength, I maintain the sweetness from the extraction and the proper dilution. Excuse me. Excuse me. The proper dilution, but I don't get the over extracted notes. So if you're troubleshooting your own brew at home, I would tell you the first thing to change is your grind. But another thing that you can do is if you're watching the brew, and whenever we do pour over or manual hand brewing, whether it's a Chemex or a V60 or a Kalita Wave, any of those sort of pour over style brewers, we are watching the whole process. We can see how quickly the coffee's draining or how slowly it's draining, and that tells us a lot about the health of the brew. So in this case, it was going a little slow for me. So that means the next time I'm going to coarsen up the grind, but I didn't want to waste this coffee. So I pulled the coffee bed early and I diluted with fresh, hot water instead. And it's perfect. It's all there for me. Blueberry is right on top. The chamomile and the lavender, for sure, I'm getting. Oh my gosh. A little bit of that herbaceousness, the sage. I wouldn't say it's quite to rosemary for me. And I'm not getting a lot of the nutmeg in this cup, but this would present differently in the different brewers. So if you're making this in this Melita here, or in a Harar V60, it's going to present a little differently. Harar V60 is going to be a bit more full-bodied, so I might get some of those other notes that I feel are left a little bit more in the background. They might come forward. So I'm going to eat a couple of these organic blueberries. I hope you don't mind. I didn't bring enough to share. Sorry. Wow. That sweetness just completely pops on my palate. When you educate your palate, when you train your palate, you're going to pull things out of the coffee you never noticed before. This, if you want to play with coffee, if you want to have fun with coffee, there is no funner coffee for my money. Like I said, this will be the best iced coffee you'll ever make. So it's getting hot here in Florida. I like to make my iced coffee right in my Chemex. Maybe we did that in our Chemex. If you look back to our videos, one of the early videos that I did Chemex two ways. We did it hot and we did it over ice. So you can go back and watch that for the full demo. But more or less, you just want to put about 40% of the volume of water that you would have put through the Chemex, you put as ice in the bottom of the Chemex. And then as you brew over it, you brew with a little more coffee, ground a little finer. And when the hot coffee hits the ice, it melts it. And in melting it, it sort of freezes the brew, but you still get all those bright acidic notes that only come out when they're extracted with heat rather than like a cold brew. And then you just take the cool mixture, pour it over clean, fresh ice, and I'm telling you, no cream, no sugar in this. It is sweet, tangy in just the right way, like the best iced tea you've ever had, but it's coffee. So for a summertime iced coffee, our Ethiopia Harar in the Chemex can't be beat. It's amazing. And hello, Pam. Got a nice comment there. All right, guys. Well, listen, if you are watching today, remember to share the stream. We give away coffee every single time that we're on air. So I'm going to be giving away a bag of our Ethiopia Harar today to somebody that is sharing the live stream. We appreciate you so much. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. Don't forget, batdorfcoffee.com. Use that coupon code WATCHANDLEARN10. Save 10%. You can pick up a bag of the Ethiopia Harar. We've also got a new coffee debuting tomorrow. If you missed the broadcast earlier, our Bolivia is back. It's an organic coffee from Bolivia. We call it Buena Vista, and it is wonderful. Sweet, like nougat, with like kind of a tangerine kind of sweetness, tanginess. It's really, really lovely coffee. One of my favorites from last year. Definitely a fan favorite. So I'm looking forward to bringing some of that next week. But if you haven't watched it, go back and watch the video, because we had some of our partners from the farm in Bolivia on the phone with us, talking with Bob, our green bean buyer, and Ben and Josh were on that call as well. It was so fun to watch. So go back, you can watch that. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you guys real soon. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.